Hello, class. We now have arrived at John chapter 11, and the title of this lecture is The Raising of Lazarus. So let's begin. Verse 1. Now a certain man was sick, Lazarus of Bethany, the village of Mary and her sister Martha. It was the Mary who anointed the Lord with ointment and wiped his feet with her hair, whose brother Lazarus was sick. So the sisters sent word to him, saying, Lord, behold, he whom you love is sick. But when Jesus heard this, he said, This sickness is not to end in death, but for the glory of God, so that the Son of God may be glorified by it. The reader sees the implicit faith of Mary and Martha in Jesus, in that they told him that their brother Lazarus was sick. They made no request. They trusted Jesus to meet the need in response to the message. The omniscience of Jesus can be seen in that he responded to the disciples. The sickness is not to end in death, he said. It was divinely arranged for God's glory so that his Son might be glorified through it. This was a very clear declaration of the deity of Jesus, in that he referred to himself as the Son of God. Verse 5. Now Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus, so he heard that he was sick. He then stayed 2 days longer in the place where he was. Then after this he said to the disciples, Let us go to Judea again. The disciples said to him, Rabbi, the Jews were just now seeking to stone you, and are you going there again? Jesus, knowing the outcome of this event, stayed 2 days longer in the place where he was. This was not a lack of responsiveness to Mary and Martha, or a lack of affection for the members of the household. Jesus rather tarried in order to provide himself an opportunity to demonstrate that he was the Son of God. After the necessary time had expired, Jesus announced he was returning to Judea, and he invited his disciples to return with him. The disciples reminded Jesus that they had left Judea because of threats against his life. Verse 9, Jesus answered, Are there not 12 hours in the day? If anyone walks in the day, he does not stumble, because he sees the light of this world. But if anyone walks in the night, he stumbles, because the light is not in him. This he said, and after that he said to them, Our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but I go so that I may awaken him out of sleep. The disciples then said to him, Lord, if he has fallen asleep, he will recover. Jesus indicated to his disciples that as long as he was walking in the light, he was in the will of God. As long as he was in the will of God, his enemies could not touch him, first of all. Then, because the disciples did not understand his statement, Jesus explained that Lazarus had fallen asleep and he was going to wake him up again. But the disciples still did not understand and wondered why Jesus would jeopardize his life to wake up to arouse a man from a night's rest. Verse 13. Now Jesus had spoken of his death. Not asleep, Lazarus was dead. But they thought he was speaking of literal sleep. So Jesus then said to them plainly, Lazarus is dead, and I'm glad for your sakes that I was not there, so that you may believe. But let us go to him. Therefore Thomas, who is called Didymus, said to his fellow disciples, Let us also go, so that we may die with him. Jesus now says plainly, Lazarus is dead, and explains that it was for the sake of the disciples that Jesus was not there, so that they might believe. The miracle Jesus was about to perform was not intended to be a public demonstration. Rather, it was an authentication to the disciples that he was the Son of God. Thomas, on this occasion, demonstrated unusual commitment to Jesus by exhorting the other disciples, "Let us also go so that we may die with him." This statement reveals the intensity of hatred for Jesus in Jerusalem. Verse 17. So when Jesus came, he found that he had already been in the tomb 4 days. Now Bethany was near Jerusalem, about 2 miles off, and many of the Jews had come to Martha and Mary to console them concerning their brother. Martha, therefore, when she heard that Jesus was coming, went to meet him, but Mary stayed at the house. Upon their arrival in Bethany of Jesus and the disciples, they discovered that Lazarus had been in the tomb for 4 days. The period of mourning was in progress. The home of Mary and Martha must have been a place of considerable prominence because many Jews had come from Jerusalem to mourn and to console. News of Jesus' coming reached the household, and Martha went to meet him, but Mary stayed in the house. Look at verse 21. Martha then said to Jesus, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. Even now I know that whatever you ask of God, God will give you." Jesus said to her, "Your brother will rise again." Martha said to him, "I know that he will rise again in the resurrection on the last day." Martha said to Jesus, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." But in spite of her reprimand, she confessed her faith in Jesus by stating, "Even now I know whatever you ask, God will give you." Jesus then affirmed to her that her brother would rise again, but she still did not understand that Jesus would raise Lazarus from the dead on that occasion. Martha's response indicated she thought Jesus was referring to the Old Testament teaching that the Messiah would raise the dead when he came to set up his kingdom. Verse 25. Jesus said to her, "I am the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me will live even if he dies, and everyone who lives and believes in me will never die. Do you believe this?" She said to him, "Yes, Lord, I have believed that you are the Christ, the Son of God, even he who comes into the world." When she had said this, she went away and called Mary her sister, saying secretly, "The teacher is here and is calling for you." Now Jesus instructs Martha that in his person were resurrection and life, and that everyone who believes in him will never die. The one who believes in Jesus receives eternal life as a present possession. Jesus was speaking words of comfort to Martha. Physical death cannot interrupt the continuation of eternal life. The one who possesses eternal life may experience the separation of the soul from the body, but not the separation of the soul from God. Jesus then asked Martha if she believed that he just taught what he just taught, and she replied, "Yes, Lord." Having said this, Martha returned to her sister and said, "The teacher is here." Verse 29. And when she heard it, she got up quickly and was coming to him. Now Jesus had not yet come into the village, but was still in the place where Martha met him. Then the Jews who were with her in the house and consoling her, when they saw that Mary got up quickly and went out, they followed her, supposing that she was going to the tomb to weep there. Therefore, when Mary came where Jesus was, she saw him and fell at his feet, saying to him, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." When Mary heard that Jesus was there, she hastened out to Jesus, fell at his feet. Her words were identical to that of her sister Martha. However, there was no reproach from Jesus. Mary had showed an attitude of devotion and submission by kneeling in adoration before the Lord. Perhaps Mary was not gripped by the same fears as her sister. It was not necessary for Jesus to instruct her in order to lift her burden. Verse 33. When Jesus therefore saw her weeping, and the Jews who came with her also weeping, he was deeply moved in spirit and was troubled, and said, Where have you laid him? They said to him, Lord, come and see. Jesus wept. So the Jews were saying, See how he loved him? But some of them said, Could not this man who opened the eyes of the blind man have kept this man also from dying? Moved with compassion, Jesus now asked to be brought to the tomb. There, Jesus wept. His were not tears for Lazarus, for he was about to raise him from the dead. Rather, Jesus had entered into the sorrow of Mary and Martha and those who came to mourn. John notes that some of the mourners wondered why Jesus did not keep Lazarus from dying, since he had recently demonstrated the power to heal the man born blind. Verse 38. So Jesus, again, being deeply moved within, came to the tomb. Now it was a cave, and a stone was lying against it. Jesus said, Remove the stone. Martha, the sister of the deceased, said to him, Lord, by this time there will be a stench, for he has been dead 4 days. Jesus said to her, Did I not say to you that if you believe, you will see the glory of God? In the presence of many mourners, Jesus first commanded the stone closing the tomb to be removed. But Martha, not Mary, remonstrated and sought to prevent the opening of the tomb because of the length of time the body had been inside. Even though Martha had confessed her faith in Jesus, he had to remind her of the comforting words he had just told her, namely, if she believed, she would see the glory of God. Verse 41. So they removed the stone. Then Jesus raised his eyes and said, Father, I thank you that you have heard me. I knew that you always hear me, but because of the people standing around, I said it, so that they may believe that you sent me. When he said these things, he cried out with a loud voice, Lazarus, come forth! The man who had died came forth, bound hand and foot with wrappings, and his face was wrapped around with a cloth. Jesus said to him, Unbind him and let him go. Jesus now offered a prayer of thanksgiving. It was designed to show the disciples that all he did was in complete dependence on the Father. Then Jesus called with a loud voice, Lazarus, come forth! The one who was resurrection and life revealed his authority over death by summoning Lazarus. Lazarus, who had been dead, came forth, bound hand and foot with grave clothes. He did not come out by his own power, but by the power of the one who had commanded him to come out. Jesus then commanded those who stood around, Unbind him and let him go. Verse 45. Therefore many of the Jews who came to Mary and saw what he had done believed in him. But some of them went to the Pharisees and told them the things which Jesus had done. Therefore the chief priests and the Pharisees convened a council and were saying, What are we doing? For this man is performing many signs, many miracles. If we let him go on like this, all men will believe in him, and the Romans will come and take away both our place and our nation. Many Jews believed in Jesus because of the miracle of raising Lazarus from the dead. However, some Jews went to the Pharisees and reported that what Jesus had done. The evidence was so great that Jesus was the Messiah. The Sanhedrin, that is the chief priests and Pharisees, said, If we let him go on like this, everyone will believe in him. They thought if the nation accepted Jesus as Messiah and he set up a kingdom, they would lose their position. Ultimately, Rome would crush this kingdom and the nation would be destroyed. Verse 49. But one of them, Caiaphas, who was high priest that year, said to them, "You know nothing at all, nor do you take into account that it is expedient for you that one man die for the people, and that the whole nation not perish." Now he did not say this on his own initiative, but being high priest that year, he prophesied that Jesus was going to die for the nation, and not for the nation only, but in order that he might also gather together into one the children of God who are scattered abroad. Caiaphas, the high priest, had been appointed to his office by Rome. He was zealous to prevent the nation from accepting Jesus as the Messiah King. He proposed to the Sanhedrin that it was better for you than that one man die for the people, and that the whole nation not perish. This meant the desire to kill Jesus was now formally presented to the Sanhedrin. Caiaphas proposed the death of Jesus as a solution to the immediate political problem, while God purposed his son's death as a solution to the problem of sin in the whole world. Verse 53. So from that day on, they planned together to kill him. Therefore Jesus no longer continued to walk publicly among the Jews, but went away from there to the country near the wilderness, into a city called Ephraim, and there he stayed with the disciples. The council concurred in the proposal of Caiaphas, and so from that day on, they planned together to kill Jesus. Therefore, Jesus no longer continued to walk publicly among the Jews. Instead, he withdrew to Ephraim, a city north of Judea, to await the appointed time for his crucifixion. And the source of this lecture came from the book, The Words and Works of Jesus Christ, authored by J. Dwight Pentecost.